Allow me to first pass my deepest condolences to the family of Vincent Oyomo, who lost his life yesterday following needless police tear gassing and mayhem against people who were assembling peacefully.
Murang'a Senator Joe Nyutu opened the interview by addressing the death of Vincent Onyomo, a bystander killed by police bullet during the ODM Linda Mwananchi rally in Kitengela, Kajiado County on Sunday, February 15, 2026. Nyutu extended his condolence directly to Oimoyo's family, describing his killings as a needless and avoidable consequences of police actions against a peaceful assembly. He stated that what happened in Kitengela was not an isolated incident, but a continuation of a deliberate government pattern of using law enforcement to terrorize citizens into staying away from opposition gathering. Nyutu drew a direct line between the Kitengela violence and the earlier episodes on January 25, 2026, when police tear gas a church service in Othaya, Nyeri County, attended by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. He noted that the public backlash and a national embarrassment that followed the church attack had forced the government into a brief period of restraint, allowing subsequent opposition rallies in Murang'a and Othaya to proceed without police interference. He stated that this clear pattern, disruption, embarrassment, pause, and the renewed disruption confirm that the attack were not a random policing decision, but a calculated action driven by direct political instruction from above. The senator argued that the government's core motive for disrupting opposition meetings was to suppress clear evidence of how much public support the opposition actually commands. He stated that ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna had warned attendees clearly during a church service on the morning of February 15 that he had a prior knowledge of plan to break up the Kitengela rally, yet thousands still turn up regardless. He described the attendance as a direct rebuke of the government's intimidation strategy, noting that Kenyans were angry about the state of the economy and governors were showing up in large numbers to demonstrate their frustration and support for opposition leaders. Nyutu then turned to the question of political optics and the government's manufactured perception of popularity. He stated that President Ruto's administration had been running a deliberate campaign to project the appearance of broad grassroots support, particularly in regions like Mount Kenya, where the opposition had been gaining grounds. He stated that the government achieved this by assembling a group of approximately 8,000 people, dressing them in the ruling party's signature's yellow colors, and parading them at the government-organized events as evidence of organic mass support. It was explicit that this crowd were paid and stated this as a documented fact rather than an allegation. Nyutu contrasted this with the opposition on a public gathering, which he said drew self-motivated, uncompensated crowd whose size and energy directly exposed the gap between the government's claimed popularity and its actual standing. He argues that whenever opposition rallies were allowed to proceed without disruption, the scale became a political embarrassing for the administration, which was precisely why the government has settled on disruption as a strategy to prevent those gathering from generating the kind of public imagery that exposes Ruto's true support base. The senator also addressed President Ruto's political record, directly stating that the president had made a series of serious political errors driven by emotional rather than rational decision making. He specifically referenced to the Gen Z protest movement in 2024, pointing out that the government had attempted to discredit those protests, claiming or by blaming Kashago for organizing and funding them. Nyutu stated that this accusation was among the grave errors of Ruto's political record, arguing that framing the crackdown on Gen Z protesters as Kashago's doing contracted the government's simultaneous attempt to portray Ruto as a decisive leader in managing demonstration. Kisumu-based lawyer and a political commentator also Dan Manzo, also speaking on the same television program on Monday, February 16th, addressed the Gen Z protest question directly. He stated firmly that the demonstration were not sponsored by any politician and were instead a genuine, spontaneous expression of a public anger, what he described as a force of natural or nature rather than a political engineered event. He added that the government's effort to link Kashagwa to the protest had produced no credible evidence, noting that not a single Gen Z participated had ever come forward to confirm receiving payment from the former deputy president. Dan Manzo directed his final message squarely at the Gen Z citizens themselves, calling on them to register as voters ahead of the 2027 general election and to channel their proven capacity for mass mobilization into formal electoral participation. He stated that voter registration and strong turnout at the ballot box represented the most powerful constitutional legitimate avenue available to young Kenyans to deliver a clear electoral verdict on the current administration.